Nick McKenzie here. If you have something to say to me, give me a call.
Operator K arced him up.
Arcing up is slang for... No weapon or radio can be seen. The Afghan is compliant and quiet on the ground. Soldier C trains his weapon on the Afghan from very close range.
What's up, my diggers? Welcome back to another episode of Bedtime Warriors, the unofficial podcast of Defence Force Recruiting. But point of note, when you go to Defence Force Recruiting and you're trying to get in the Australian Army, don't fucking bring up this podcast. A fair few people have told me that they went in there and when they were asked what were their reasons for joining, and they talked about Skojo's Instagram page and Skojo's podcast, Bedtime Warriors, and asked the warrant officer interviewing them what his thoughts were on the podcast. It should be no surprise that these old crusty fucking losers are not big fans of the potty. So, at the corporal, maybe up to sergeant level, a lot of cunts are pretty fucking happy at Defence Force Recruiting. Numbers for fucking EW operators, questions about being a combat controller, direct entry commando, they're fucking, cunts are flying through the doors. But apparently the OC level of Defence Force Recruiting are telling cunts, stop fucking listening to podcasts at work that pertain to Skojo, because he's a fucking piece of shit. He's giving people an unrealistic view of what the Defence Force is. And that might be true, but at the end of the day, this is just my experience, and I can only speak to what I've done. And it's funny, some people will say to me, about all these stories and fucking photos I have, look at my Instagram, and people say like, oh, well, fucking, it's not a realistic interpretation of the ADF and how we did business in Afghanistan and Iraq. You weren't in Iraq. You've never been to Mosul. You don't have... The reason that you think it's an unrealistic representation of the ADF is because you never went there, cunt. You've never been in a gunfight. And some of the dudes have. I heard a couple of the old crusty... We call them old school bravos in the Commando Regiment. Weren't too happy about some of the photos and podcasts that I've been in, and they're sort of saying the same thing. And it's like, well, you chose not to take photos because you guys were banging it in, but Skojo's up in the OP with the snipers. I've got plenty of time on my hands, and my interpreter was a bit of a fucking avid amateur photographer. So that cunt had the patrol camera, and he's taking photos all day long. Mostly pictures of fucking random shit like flowers and stuff, but every now and then he'd take a fucking sick war dog photo of me, and that was cool because at the end of the trip I get all these sick photos. And I said to someone the other day that if I took, let's say whatever job you do, say you work in the mines or you work at fucking Woolies or you work at fucking Bunnings, whatever, look at your phone reel. You probably on average take at least one photo every day of something random that's happening in your boring workplace. So let's say I took one photo a day on operations whenever I was on a job, and I was deployed for the majority of my 20s on operations somewhere around the world, and I'd take a photo and fucking send it to the fucking missus, or send it to fucking, some chick I was trying to bang, or some dude's dad that I was trying to finger, then, naturally I've got thousands of deployment photos. And I never ever thought that they would see the light of day, and I never thought that these stories from this podcast would ever come out. But fucking here they are. It's pretty hard to Photoshop 100 fucking sick war dog photos on my Instagram. So it's always funny that people say it's an unrealistic expectation of the ADF. Well, that's just because your view of the ADF is sitting behind a fucking keyboard all day, you fucking loser. So here we are. We're back for another episode. We've got a new fucking government. Australians fucking voted in the old Labor Party. And they've been doing good so far. I think they disbanded the Department of fucking, or some Veterans Affairs portfolio. So obviously they don't give a fuck about veterans, which is no surprise. And then I think yesterday it came out that the Chinese buzzed one of our fucking spy planes over in the South China Sea. And the old Air Force and the ADF didn't do shit about it, other than fucking cry about it on the news. So I think we're in for a tough couple of years. So to get us through, to remain violent, I'll maintain these worries until the day those fucking losers are kicked out. So we're at the point up in Mosul where I was in that green coaster bus and I've just fucking rolled into the mean streets of the fucking eastern side of Mosul. And at this point in time in the war, I guess I'd missed the first couple of weeks of the Special Forces Advisory Team that the Aussies and SEALs had up in Mosul. And that was essentially the break-in for CTS, so the Iraqi Counterterrorism Service. And what that means is, you picture Mosul like a huge city, like a capital city, and it is surrounded on all sides by the Iraqi government special forces, the dudes in black, that are supported and enabled by small advisory teams from the American and Australian militaries, and then a couple of other fucking random nations as well. So the Iraqi Counterterrorism Service had basically just come through the desert and surrounded the whole city. And ISIS had plenty of time to sort out their defenses, to set up and make sure they've got all these berms, V-beards, everything's ready to go, all their mortars, tow missiles, everything was set up to defend this city to the last man standing, which is exactly what happened. And as the Iraqi CTS boys were out in the desert, they're starting to get peppered, rocketed, and mortared by the outskirts of the Mosul city. So VBIDs, vehicle-borne IEDs, which you've seen on my Instagram, were just up-armored fucking Toyota Hiluxes and whatnot that had basically garbage, like skip industrial-sized metal steel garbage bins welded to the front of them. The driver was put into the vehicle, and he was actually welded in a lot of the times. So because they would choose not to kill themselves, and a lot of the time the VBID drivers were actually the dumbest fighters. So any fighter that they assessed to be an absolute dumb cunt, they put them as VBID drivers, because obviously it's a win-win. They get to go off to heaven and have their 72 virgins and become a martyr. But at the same time, the ISIS leadership don't have to deal with this fucking retard that's just shown up and wanted to fight, but he's actually just a cooked cunt. Like that, I feel sorry for the dude's dad. He seems like a good cunt. I watched an interview on Australian television, but there was an Australian foreign fighter, a skinny fucking pale-looking fucking zombie-looking cunt from maybe Melbourne. He's about 16 years old. He went over to fight, and they're like, yeah, well, this cunt, all he knows how to do is play COD. He's not strong. He's piss weak. He looks pathetic. Chuck him in the V-bid, boys. So they welded the cunt into a V-bid and sent him on his merry way. So what they'll do is often set it up as a pressure release switch. So on like the gear knob, he's holding a button down, and the moment that he lets go of that button, the pressure on the switch releases and it detonates the V-bid. So the moment that he crashes into his target and he's, sort of jolted out of his seat, or he decides that he's happy to die at that moment, he releases the trigger. So as soon as he's in that V-bid, he's going to die. And it's our job to stop him killing others. So by the time he was sort of driving out of the city of Mosul towards the Iraqi CTS vehicles on the horizon that are about to assault the city on the eastern and northeastern side of Mosul, V-bids are just flying at these cunts. And it was very hard to drop hellfires on these cars, because by the time the Iraqis noticed them coming towards them, you only got probably sort of 30 seconds, and you think about the time it takes to quickly for a drone to lock onto a moving vehicle that's heading towards a target and then release its weapon, say an AGM-114 Romeo Hellfire. Depending on the altitude that drone's sitting at and the orbit that it's taking and what's underneath it and the approval process it needs to go through to release a weapon, it might not be long enough in terms of time to get that weapon onto the target. So for the most part, it was up to the Iraqis with their RPGs and I think AT-4 anti-tank weapons that the Americans had given them to defend themselves. So they were losing a lot of dudes from VBIDs, snipers, tow missiles. So they quickly rushed into the city because they were getting fucking peppered out in the desert. But the moment that they moved into that urban environment and broke into the eastern side of the city, we could start the clearance. So that's kind of what happened in the probably 3 weeks prior to me arriving in location. So once I rolled in, the Iraqi CTS boys are already inside the city and they've cleared up to a town called Bartala or Bartala, they like to call it in fucking Arabic. And this town that we rocked up to was, I think it had a lot of Orthodox influence. So when ISIS made Mosul the caliphate headquarters city of Iraq, they'd obviously got rid of all these other religions. And one of the main religions was like the Orthodox Church. And we basically set up shop right next to this famous church. You can Google the cunt. I think it's called St. George's Church, Bartala, Iraq. And from our understanding is that it executed all of the priests and, the nuns and the little altar boys and everything. The church was completely burnt out inside. I've uploaded photos of this before to the gram, and it was kind of surreal to think what happened to the people that were in that church when ISIS rolled into town. So I pulled up at the house, and it was basically like a mansion. It was like a kind of house you would see in Vaucluse in Sydney, just like a massive I think it was a 3-story compound. All concrete, solid as fuck, and you could see up on the roof there was a couple of like the boys had knocked out some holes for little mouse holes, or that we used in Afghanistan to shoot through those mud compound walls in relative security. So they'd use the same techniques that we'd used in Afghan to defend compounds that we'd taken over in Iraq. Up on the roof. So it was pretty cool to see what they'd done. They'd started to fortify some of the entrances and walls and barricade some areas. So it was well defended if ISIS happened to come back and start reclaiming the city and heading back towards our location. So a lot of the shooters were busy doing the general work that they'd fucking learnt from day one, week one of Kapuka Singleton training, where they were barricading and defending and conducting DevOps. Essentially, that's what it was, out of this house. While all the specialists, the SIGs guys were setting up generators and the radio systems and networks that we'd set up in the middle of the house. And then naturally a few dudes are sort of just jerking it in their rooms. And I remember, like, basically the whole street was ours. So our house, the Aussie house, was, it was referred to when we talked to people back in Australia or in the headquarters in Baghdad as an FOB. And if you picture in Afghanistan, the FOBs like, Fob Tinsley or Firebase Cobra or Mirrorwise or up in the Chora Valley, they were all those dirt HESCO fobs that we all know from Afghanistan. And you can Google that shit if you're a civvy and you don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. But essentially just a dust bowl with some, mud walls around you to protect you from small arms and RPG fire. And then you'd be pretty lucky to get, if the Taliban fired like a 155 shell and actually landed it inside the fob. That was pretty rare. But in this place in Iraq, in Bartala, the Aussie house, what we were referring to as a fob, was literally just some rich cunt's house that had lived in that area next to the church. And then the next house, I think the next two houses along for us were, one house was the American Airborne 82nd, Mad Dogs, and they were our perimeter security, and they were the vehicles that were driving us in and out of Mosul and back to Erbil when we needed ammunition or supplies, fuel, mail, whatever was coming in. They were the dudes that were sorting us out. So they were sick cunts. And then at night, they would actually go up on the roof of our house and do our pickets. So not complaining about that. And then naturally, we'd take turns if we were awake or coming off shift, go up there and bring the cunts a hot Milo or something because, you know, they're sitting up there in the middle of fucking an Iraqi winter just facing out while we're just fucking cuddled up in our sleeping bags downstairs. And then the next house along from that, I think the next two houses were the Iraqi CTS headquarter elements and all of the private security detail of the Iraqi generals that we were there supporting. And then the final house in the street was actually the SEALs team house. So I think when I got there, it was SEAL Team 5. Yeah, so that's where it all went down. I worked up in the SEAL team house because that's where the strike cell was. So if you can imagine, you know, I talked about it in the my first Iraq trip, what they call a TOC, or we call a SOC-C, but it actually had about 12 TV monitors all over the walls in the front of the room, which was just some cunt's house. So imagine someone's living room and a tier 1 special forces element has set up 12 TV monitors, and every one of those monitors is showing a different drone, fast jet, AC-130, some kind of fast air, or some kind of intelligence analysis reporting all up on the screen in front of you. So you just had the whole world's arsenal at your disposal to pick off these fucking pieces of shit that were known as the Islamic State fighters running around in Mosul. So my very first, I got there at night, so I couldn't really do too much. But the next morning I woke up and I had to obviously get my bearings and start setting up my, my signals equipment, electronic warfare equipment. And without going into it too much, I had to set up an antenna up on the roof. So old Skojo's like, yeah, no dramas. I ran a cable up the wall 3 stories from where my my workspace was, and I went up on the roof. And I'm, it's only 2 or 3 years since I did my fucking reinforcement cycle at this time. So I'm still fucking in that sort of mentality like I'm a lid and I'm being assessed. So I'm up there tactically, although I'm just in footy shorts, thongs, and I've got a pistol on my footy shorts. And I'm just kind of, pretty relaxed about the fucking dress and bearings and the PPE and the safety aspect of what I'm doing. But I'm standing on a rooftop in fucking Mosul, Iraq, in the Islamic State Caliphate headquarters. So I'm trying to, I think the wall was about maybe 3 or 4 foot high. And this is the same wall that, you've seen the pictures of me on the gram with my, in my dick stickers with my VB flag. This is the exact same location I'm talking about. Now, obviously you can see I'm pretty laxed at that time because that was later in the deployment when the fight had got, a few kilometers away from us, where it was kind of safe to sit up on the roof in your dick togs. I don't think it was ever safe to do that, but I did it anyway because I do what the fuck I want. But I'm up on the roof at this point in time when the fight's only, a kilometer or 2 down the road from where I'm standing. So I'm kind of monkey crawling on the roof to set up this antenna. And, tactically, like being, sound when I move between open spaces on the roof, I'm sort of trying not to get my head shot off by an ISIS sniper with a Dragunov. And, I'm fucking doing that whole business. And then I was doing that for about 5 or 10 minutes. And then I look at the roof next door, and there was about 5 or 6 Iraqi soldiers just standing up there in the middle of the open in the roof, smoking and laughing at me because they thought I was being a little bitch by ducking. So I pretended like I dropped something. Oh yeah, I dropped my fucking contact lens or whatever. And I stood up. I was like, oh hey boys, how you going? Shakul Markul, salam alaikum. Give them a fucking how you going. And then they were all like, oh cool, this dude isn't a pussy. He was just fixing an antenna or something on the ground. So I realized then that the fight was long enough or far enough away from us that I didn't need to monkey crawl around on the roof. And that was good because I kind of looked like a bitch then for the first 5 to 10 minutes. And then I set up my antenna and I went up to a few houses up to the SEAL house. And what the first thing that I noticed about the SEAL house, it was like kind of a bit of reality for me, was there was a cross, a memorial to a dude that had just died a couple of weeks prior to me getting there. and I think his name was Jason Finan. And he was the Navy SEAL EOD dude that was there in that team house, living in that house with those guys who had been killed recently. And it said he was killed by an IED. And when I asked around, like, fuck, does that mean there's IEDs like right here where we are right now? And one of the boys was kind of giving me a brief and sort of showing me the area and giving me an understanding of what's going on. And how he actually got killed was the SEALs, the Aussies at this point in time were just staying in that house all day and dropping bombs on cunts, which is fine, works, very effective. But the SEALs were actually going out with the Iraqi battalion headquarters. So they're kind of like a tactical bound back from the front line fighting against ISIS, but still in a very dangerous position. And when they parked their cars in like a vacant lot of land, in, you know, just near Bartala where they were operating out of, the EOD dude, the vehicle driver was backing an MRAP into this vacant lot, like backing his car up, and you know, you can't see out of the back, so they cracked open the back door, and the bloke Jason apparently was hanging out the back of the vehicle when it backed over an IED. And when the IED detonated, it slammed the door. The blast slammed the door closed, but his head was in between the vehicle and the door. And you know, and that obviously didn't end too well. And that was pretty fucking shit. And they were still pretty cut about it. But it made me realize, like, fuck, you know, we're not in Kansas anymore, you know. And you got to fucking watch your bearings. And we'll talk about IEDs a bit later on. But so I roll into the strike cell, introduce myself to everyone, and they said, yeah, you basically got a 1-week trial here to kill as many people as possible to see if you're effective or if you're just another cunt that's just wasting a bed space and meals out in this fucking desolate wasteland. So I got to work, and yeah, it was fucking pretty hectic. Like, it was the kind of place, like, there's no running water. The house just stinks like shit. So the SEALs were shitting in their house, which was just like a bidet on the second floor, which made the whole house smell like shit. So every day I went to work, it was like sitting in a portaloo where 100 dudes have just taken a shit in summer. It was horrendous. The Aussies made a rule not to shit in our house. So, well, the process was you would actually get like an empty MRE or ration pack bag. You would go up to the toilet on the second floor. You'd hold open the MRE bag like a sniper in an OP, shit into a plastic bag, wipe yourself, put it in the bag, and then walk downstairs carrying your bag of shit through everyone, like through the kitchen, and people are in there whipping up dinner and shit, and you're just walking through with a bag of shit. And then you go outside about 20 meters across the road and throw it in a constantly burning fire, which was just on the ground. So every now and then the wind would change and the whole street would just smell like burning plastic and dog shit, or human shit. So it was pretty fucking primal living, but it was good working. And the main thing is that we were the only ones in the world. Everyone's like on the news and on CNN and ABC News. Oh, ISIS are attacking us. They're killing all these people around the world. And we were the only ones actually taking the fight to them. And it's a small team of like 10 to 15 dudes. So it was pretty cool to be a part of that. And obviously I hang my hat on it still. I think it was fucking sick. So I'm there, like, you know, trying to do my thing, and obviously I won't talk in detail about what I was doing, but obviously I'm trying to help the JTACs and the combat controllers that were JTACs. Essentially anyone that was JTAC qualified that was there sitting in the strike cell, I was trying to find them targets to kill. And there was no shortage of bad cunts running around with like an AK-47 or an RPG or a technical shooting at our partner force, because our partner force are getting absolutely brassed up every day. You know, we were losing a couple of dudes dead every day from our partner force. So they're in some heavy urban combat, and all that we could really do was drop bombs in support of them. But the way that I saw it was like a dude shooting at you with an AK, they should be able to be killed and targeted organically by your own weapon systems of the partner force. So if we're getting told, like, the partner force, like, please, please, drop a bomb on these cunts over here, and we look at it on a drone feed, or do we really want to waste a Hellfire rocket on these cunts, shooting it with an AK against our, a company or a platoon worth of Iraqi soldiers? We just tell them, no, you go and fucking kill that cunt yourself. We're going to drop a Hellfire on a mortar team that we can see operating a kilometer away from you on the front line, because that's a bigger threat to you right now, because you're getting indiscriminate mortar fire coming towards you. That's actually pretty accurate. So it was all kind of happening, and I couldn't really do anything. And no one, the last thing that the partner force of the JTACs want to hear from myself, someone doing my job, is like, oh my God, the ISIS are I think they're about to shoot at you. No shit, cunt. We've been getting shot at for the last 2 months straight. We don't need to hear that. Find us someone rear of the front line, way back there, that are actually commanding the fight. Where is their headquarters element? Where are the mortar teams? Where are the V-bids being stored that are constantly just fucking rolling out of the garages and blowing up 10 of us at a time? That's what they wanted to know. So I started to get an understanding by speaking to the SEAL and the Aussie command team, and the JTACs, and then mostly the partner force, just having, chai and coffee with those cunts every night. I would get an understanding of, like, what scared the fuck out of them, what made them worried, and it was a gentleman's war. It was generally like the fight would last from 7 a.m. to kind of 7 p.m. So yeah, it got dark. ISIS didn't have night vision capabilities, so everyone just kind of went home. Everyone just fucking knocked off, and I'd just go and have some chai with the boys, and have a good time with the Iraqi partner force. And that's when I learned, exactly what they wanted from me. So I've still just got a week to test myself, and then a pretty significant incident happened where I was analyzing some information that had come through across a number of different sources, where the Iraqi Special Forces guys had cleared a suburb. But we were getting reporting saying that there was still ISIS fighters that they didn't catch in that suburb that were hiding in the cupboards of these houses. And when nightfall hit and the Iraqi counterterrorism service were just standing around a fire, noshing each other off or whatever they do at night. Hot tip, that's exactly what they do at night. Welcome to the Middle East, cunts. Nightfall was approaching, and we had pretty significant reporting saying that there were these bad cunts behind enemy lines that were going to start executing people at night. And if you remember back to that other episode I talked about with the Hamoudi, I'd kind of been, I felt kind of partially responsible for the execution of 8 Iraqi police in 2014, so I didn't want that to happen again. So I worked pretty hard to try and find out where these dudes were, but there was nothing that the SEALs or the Aussies could actually do, because it was too far away from the street we were living in. We couldn't just go there and re-clear the suburb. So I had to get this information to the Iraqis, and I met a little dude called Captain Muthana, and he was a fucking sick cunt. He was a really approachable, happy dude to talk to, and he was the kind of JTAC liaison between our JTACs and the Iraqi partner force, where he would basically make sure that we weren't dropping bombs on our own people, which did unfortunately happen at some times, where the Iraqi counterterrorism service in an urban environment would get confused and start shooting at each other because they're fucking peeking. Unfortunately, that occurred, and then we would work up an airstrike and drop a bomb on our own people because our people were requesting to drop a bomb on them. So it was pretty sad and obviously upsetting when that would happen, but the Iraqis didn't blame us because they're the ones requesting the strike. So we got an Iraqi JTAC who was trained by the Americans into our strike cell as an LO. So I'm talking to this dude, and we developed a pretty good relationship, obviously without noshing each other off, where I could help find bad dudes that are in the city that the Iraqis could then go and organically prosecute with their own assets. So I sort of said where I think these dudes might be hanging out. The Iraqis stopped what they were doing. They stopped noshing each other off and drinking chai. They put their cups down. They got their weapons, and they went back to the street where I thought that these dudes were about to conduct like an execution at night on the Iraqis that had already cleared that area. And I didn't hear anything. And then the next morning I rocked up to work. All these Iraqis come running up to me trying to nosh me off. And I'm like, what's up, boys? Yeah, nosh me off, but just not in front of the boys, you know. And they told me that what had happened was I'd forgotten about it. They went to the area that I was talking about, you know, the night prior. And 2 dudes came running out of the house with AKs and started blatting at them. So they killed them. And then they killed another 3 dudes inside the house. So they killed 5 insurgents that were behind enemy lines, who would have most certainly killed a fair few of them in their sleeping bags at night. So I was obviously very happy with that. But the Iraqis kind of started to see me as some kind of fucking wizard. And that was good because it sort of started to justify my position in Mosul. So rather than what I thought would happen, where I'd have to try and impress the SEAL team CO, who was a sick cunt, his name's Beef, and then and my own command team, who I'd worked with a lot, and they knew who I was and what I did. But when you're back in Australia on tag, there's not too much in my role that I can impress my command team with. They just know that in Afghanistan we were sick cunts and we helped out the team and we helped locate bad dudes in order to prosecute targets. But in Iraq, people had kind of forgotten what we did and how we were relevant in the Iraqi fight. But I was starting to show them, hey, this is what we fucking do, remember? We're fucking good cunts to have around. But to have the Iraqi counterterrorism service going up to my boss and going, Abu Jonesy, which they called me, so I think like my Facebook name at the time was Skojo or the Skojo or whatever. So I didn't really want them to know my name Skojo. So everyone just called me Jonesy. And what ISIS call each other is like Abu Jonesy. So Abu means like father of Jonesy. So I would refer to myself when speaking to the Iraqi partner force that I was ISIS. So I would refer to myself as Abu Jonesy al-Sidnawi, which is Abu Jonesy from Sydney. And that's what they would call like a foreign fighter. So like if your name was Muhammad and you were from the city of Basra and you're an ISIS fighter, you would be Abu Muhammad al-Basrawi. And that's how they identified themselves. That was their call signs, like obviously on the radio and fighting. That's how they became famous, like Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the father of Bakr from Baghdadi. So that's how the kind of ISIS structure worked. So when I would introduce myself to the Iraqis, I would introduce myself as an ISIS fighter. And it would instantly break down those barriers where they'd be like, this random white cunt's calling himself ISIS. And they would already know, like, okay, he's an approachable, funny, fucking gobby, larrikin cunt. We'll talk to him, rather than the staunch SEALs and commandos and SAS dudes that are all walking around in their fucking Kathmandu hiking equipment, giving everyone stink eye. So as you can see from my gram, I got a lot of followers from Iraq. It's because I was like the fucking messiah of the Iraqi people for a certain point in time. And it was good because I like hanging out with those cunts. I actually liked the Iraqi partner force as opposed to the Afghan partner force, who were just a bunch of rapists and pedophiles. So I've instantly just justified my position in Bartala. And I knew, like, okay, it looks like I'm going to be staying here. The Iraqis, every time I walked through the street, so I had to pass 2 Iraqi houses to get to the SEAL strike cell every morning on the way to work and on the way home. And I'm getting invited in for chai. I'm high-fiving cunts, getting a few bum taps on the way past because they know that I'm invested in helping them and not just protecting our own people, but saving the lives of the Iraqi partner force, which was fucking starting to become pretty cool. So then I think, so I'm back at the house. We're just chilling one afternoon in the Aussie house. Not much was going on. I don't think we had many air assets above us, so I couldn't really work too much. But a random Iraqi family rocked up to the street, and this well-dressed Iraqi man came up to us and sort of said, "Hey boys, hey Aussies," and he's standing at the front of our house. "This is actually my house." And we're like, "Cool story, cunt. It's our house now. Welcome to war." And he said, "Understand, I'm a big supporter of you guys. I hate ISIS. I just want to make sure that you're not going to like burn my house down when you're finished with it, because this is my family home. And we're like, we're not pieces of shit, you know. We're not ISIS. We're like, no dramas, man. The moment that we need to, we're going to move to the other side of the city. When we clear enough of this city, we're going to keep moving, and we're not going to ruin your house. It's probably in better nick than it is right now, because we've got shooters that aren't really JTAC qualified sweeping the floors every day and actually taking good care of it, because we don't like living in squalor. So it was probably cleaner than it had ever been. The only thing we'd done is really knock some holes in the roof cavity so we could shoot out of it if we were under attack. But we said to the cunt, well, or the platoon sergeant said, well, prove it. Prove that this is your house and you're not just going to claim this house and fucking become rich off it. And he said, all right, boys, well, if you dig up the front garden, there's a fucking weapon in there. And we're all just like playing it cool, like, oh, okay, no dramas. All right, we'll keep it cool. It's all good. Once we leave, you can come back and live in your house. And we told the Iraqi partner force to fuck this dude off. So what do you reckon is the first thing we do? We get the SOA engineer that's with us, old Abu Shweebs. Oi, Shweeby, get out here, cunt. There's a fucking gun in the front garden. Let's find the cunt. I wonder what it is. So, I'm just imagining an AK or an RPG or something is in the front yard. And it's Iraq. If you didn't have a gun in somewhere cased in your house, you're a fucking idiot. So whether he was a good dude or a bad dude, you're still going to have a weapon. And like in Australia, I've got guns. It doesn't mean I'm a bad person. So we get the engineer in, and we're all just standing around this tiny little front garden in the courtyard of our house. And instantly, he's got his minesweeper out, the same ones that you would see in Afghanistan sweeping for an IED. He's sweeping, and straight away he gets a mad ping, and everyone's like, "Oh, there's a massive gun in the front yard." And he digs it up about a foot down, pulls it up in a bag, opens it up, and it is one of the rarest pistols I've ever seen in my life. And we've found a lot of guns in our fucking travels and our adventures, but this little pistol, not too many people have a pistol. Like in Afghanistan, if you had a Makarov pistol and you were Taliban, and we found that on you, and it wasn't a throwdown, jokes. No, if you had a Makarov pistol in Afghanistan as a Taliban fighter, you were generally like a commander. You were a fucking important dude. And they would wave that pistol around in meetings as like a sign of like, look what I have. I'm a big dog. I got a pistol. And it was the same in Iraq. So that pistol, we got the Iraqis over to have a look at it. And it was actually the brand Tariq. And what that brand was, it looked like kind of a Beretta. But what it was Saddam Hussein issued all of his Ba'ath Party officers, the big dogs, with these Tariq pistols. And they had like a little Arabic logo on the pistol grip, and they were pretty sick. And some of them were gold, some were silver, some were black, depending on your position in the hierarchy. And this fucking hectic pistol comes out of the ground, and everyone obviously wanted it, and we're all fucking playing with it. And one of the boys actually polished it up, got all the rust off it, made it all spick and span, and we actually gave it to, we had an embedded special forces individual from another country that I think their laws are a bit more lenient to import fucking weapons that you found in Iraq. We wouldn't do that shit. But we gave it to this fella. Not going to say which country he's from, but God bless America and the patriot state of Tennessee. And he took that home with him as a present, as a memento for working with the sick cunts that were Task Force 632, the Aussie cunts. So it was such a wild place. Like when you weren't fucking dropping bombs on cunts, you were digging up pistols in the front yard. You were dodging IEDs and drone strikes and mortars, and it was just all happening. And it was just fucking heaven for a soldier. For a soft soldier, no one's getting killed. We're all just wearing footy shorts, board shorts, fucking cam pants and a singlet. Like, it was fucking good. It was living. And, maybe that's why these cunts, these older fuckwits that are saying, oh, Skojo's worries aren't really realistic. Well, I got photos of it to prove it, so suck me off at the next station, you dog. So the Iraqis at this point in time are happy, and when I'm not passing information to the Iraqis to help support them and keep them alive. I'm obviously passing information to our JTACs and our combat controllers that are there in the strike cell, just dropping bombs all day long. And they had a kill count in the strike cell. We had a whiteboard and it said like Australia, and it was just like two sides of the board. And every day it would just be a competition on who got the most kills. So you've got the Americans might have had, 20 strikes that day with an estimated, 50 EKIA, and we've done about the same. And every time, the fucking, you drop a bomb on a house where the ISIS insurgents are shooting back at our partner force, and somehow we ask the Iraqis, oh, cool, how many did we kill in that strike? And they're like, instantly come back, 10. We killed 10 Daesh in that one. And you're like, cunt, you haven't even cleared that building yet, bro. What are you talking about? But they chuck it up on the board as a fucking 10 EKIA. So the American Partner Force CTS battalion was a little bit more fucking willing to fudge the strike numbers. But it was just a fucking amazing time to be alive. And for me, it's like, it's pretty easy to pass information onto a JTAC to convince them to strike a building when you can see muzzle flashes coming out of that building as well. So I'm passing on information to the JTACs. They're dropping bombs on cunts, but they've got the warm and fuzzy inside knowing Skojo's not just making shit up, because they can actually see muzzle flashes coming out of the eastern side of that structure that I'm saying to blow up towards our partner force. And, if you can talk a chick into having anal, you can probably talk a JTAC into conducting an airstrike. So, yeah, fucking write that one down in the fucking JTAC how-to, Pam. If you can talk a chick into having anal, you can talk a JTAC into working a strike. So, shout out to all the JTACs out there, mad cunts. And, well, I had another probably 2 or 3 days left. So, this is all happened in like the first week that I was there. And probably one of the most biggest, most significant moments then happened in my career. And it's something that got me in a lot of trouble, and it's something that made international headlines, and it's something that I was probably pretty well renowned for in the unit for those that did work with me. And it's something that is like a running joke between me and all my constituents, whatever you fucking call them. And that is what happened at the Mosul University. So as the Iraqi partner force are pushing further and further west through the city of Mosul towards the river, I think it's the Euphrates, and they've got like probably 10, 20 kilometers to push across from east to west to clear this city. And have a look on a map so you know what the fuck I'm talking about. But we're on the eastern side in that town Bartala, and the boys are clearing our partner force all the way towards the river. And when we get to the river, we'll work it out from there what we're going to do. But we had put airstrikes onto all of the major bridges that will cross from the Euphrates River from the east to the west side. So all these cunts are kind of stuck in this side of the city. So there's nowhere that they can go. They're just going to fight to the death. And they are losing ground, although we are copping a lot of casualties. And I think we'd had sort of at this point like 100, 200 of our friendly forces killed in action. And it was horrific, some of the injuries that we were seeing coming back through. But ultimately the boys were doing well. They were keeping the pressure on, and they were taking like a city block at a time. Like, so say they had 2 or 3 battalions from north to south pushing from east to west, and one, say, 1st battalion would break and take about 2 or 3 city blocks full of ISIS fighters. And the way that they were doing it, which is completely unconventional and not what we would do, is they would drive a whole block through ISIS infiltrated areas where ISIS are in the houses all around them, put in a cordon, and then clear backwards towards their own forces, trapping all the ISIS fighters inside that city block. So imagine the fucking chaos. You've got 2 Iraqi Special Forces elements clearing towards each other from one end of the street to the other, and in the middle there's ISIS fighters in there getting sandwiched. getting fucking a train ran on the cunts by fucking 5.56 rounds. So it was absolute fucking chaos. And when the ISIS fighters realized that they're completely surrounded and there's no way out, it became a TTP for them to wear a suicide vest everywhere they went. So they essentially had like bum bags, we call them bum bags, whatever the fucking eshays wear, around their waist with enough plastic explosive to kill them and whoever's in the room around them. So these ISIL fighters are surrounded, so they were just hiding in cupboards. When they ran out of ammunition, the Iraqi dudes come into the room and start clearing it with their weapons. They just jump out of a cupboard and detonate themselves and kill everyone in the room. So it was fucking hectic. Like the Marines in the surge in Fallujah, but instead of going house to house in a methodical, with a proper plan, and going house to house, clearing along the way as you go, and knowing that everything behind you is secure, the Iraqis are just doing the big Hollywood drive up the middle of the street, park the cars, and clear backwards. So then if one battalion would do that, the next Iraqi Special Forces battalion to the south of them would see, it would be getting kind of ego driven, like, oh, they just took 2 blocks up there, we're gonna go take 4, and then they would do the same thing, and it was just fucking hectic. And we can't provide airstrikes when you've got a city block and 2 Iraqi Special Forces element facing each other, clearing back towards each other with ISIS fighters in the middle. What the fuck can we do about that? So we had to then look deeper to see what was happening in the next block. So it was fucking wild, man. It was something that none of us had ever seen before, but it was effective. They were losing a lot of guys, but it was very aggressive, which I loved, but it was very fucking wild. But the longer and longer that we fought in, not us, but the CTS dudes fought in these streets, the closer we got to the river and the closer we got to taking back this side. So we started to get a lot of intelligence coming through. And this isn't just from, signals reporting. This is from open source. This is from human intelligence. Layered intelligence and fused intelligence is telling us that the headquarters of the Islamic State on this side of the city is actually the Mosul University. And a specific fucking building. So we're just like, well, we can't blow up a university. Imagine how that would look if it came out on the news that the coalition just blew up the Mosul University. It would look pretty fucking bad. And that's exactly what fucking happened. So at about 3 a.m, I was sitting there by myself with my interpreter. There was a huge gunfight about 2 kilometers to the east of the university. And a lot of the reporting was coming through that the reason why ISIS were fighting so hard, and they were actually fighting at night this time, is because they didn't want their headquarters to fall. And then some cunt was like, well, where's the headquarters? Oh, the headquarters is the Mosul University Library. And everyone's just like, fucking hell. So it's going down. There is a huge rate of fire from each side shooting at each other. And we put a drone up over the university, and we start to see dudes loading up their technicals, utes, and vehicles and filling it with all of like the laptops, computers, hard drives, books, paperwork, filing cabinets coming out of the Mosul University Library. And we all looked at each other like, that looks like a headquarters. That's what we would do if we were about to be overrun. So then some dude's out there with a 40, like a 40-gallon drum, and he's burning papers and shit. I'm like, this is exactly what we would do. So I'm like, oh, fuck, man. But everyone's looking at me like, well, we can't just blindly drop a bomb on a university, what's known as a Category 1 structure, being infrastructure. So we can't drop bombs without, like, their Prime Minister's approval of, say, a power grid, a sewage treatment plant, a school, a bridge, a university, a hospital, a school. Any of that stuff would have, like, national implications if we dropped a bomb on it. A mosque, for example, that's a Category 1 structure. And Category 2 structures are just like a shed, a house, a fucking car, where no one will really give a fuck if we blow it up. So it's the middle of the night. We're not going to wake up the Iraqi Prime Minister, and it looks like they're packing up the headquarters. We need to kill these cunts right now, or they're just going to go set up this headquarters somewhere else. So the CEO of the SEAL task force is awake, and he's looking at me, and I'm looking at him, and there's a monumental decision about to be made, whether we don't strike and we have to live with the consequences, or we make the strike and then have to live with the consequences. And I just looked at him, and I'm coming towards the end of my career, the end of my posting at 2 Commando, knowing that I'm a Category B SIG and that I'm going to be posted out at the end of this deployment. I thought, I may never get a chance to have this much impact in the battle space ever again. But I know I've had chai. I'm drinking with these Iraqi soldiers every night, and the pressure starts mounting on me like, well, if I don't conduct this airstrike and I don't sign off on this one, I might lose some of my friends, some of these dudes that I now care about, that are funny cunts, that are actually legends that I'm hanging out with at night. And I decided to back myself, and I gave the thumbs up, and the JTAC starts working an airstrike. There was no aircraft on station, and it's such a huge structure that they decided to use HIMARS, which is like a high altitude mortar round. It goes up above the Earth's atmosphere and then drops back down like a direct attack. And these rounds are fucking expensive and haven't really been used that much in the fight yet. And we just got the word back that, yep, they're going to do it. They want to use HIMARS. It's happening. Good on you, Skojo. Job's on. And I just walked outside thinking, oh man, I'm going to get in so much trouble for this. But I knew it was the right thing to do. So I hear the JTIC yell that, yep, HIMARS inbound, like, with the, say, 2-minute call. And these HIMARS are being released from where they were being released from. And they're flying up through the air. And as the rounds are flying through the atmosphere, about to blow up a Category 1 structure, my phone starts ringing. And I got people back in headquarters saying, what the fuck have you done? Do you understand what you've just done? And I'm like, hey, well, I got to fucking back myself at some point. And so I'm getting my ear chewed off by like the higher echelons of our government. And the rounds are still flying in the air. And then I'm watching on the screen. At the same time I'm getting yelled at, the rounds start impacting the Mosul University. And it's fucking going off. So I think they put 12 HIMARS in the roof of the cunt. And it was about like, $1.8 million worth of rounds. And you could see that the cunt was burning. Like it was like Rome was burning. And I'd just taken out a Category 1 structure with no approval other than myself. But backing myself and knowing that I was doing the right thing. And I got told to like fucking get the fuck out. Stop work. You're not to work anymore tonight. Go home. We'll talk about it in the morning. And thankfully, when I woke up, all of the reporting. Now, on one hand, there's like CNN. You can Google this shit. Mosul University airstrike targeted by coalition. Fucking whatever. Fuck is. I'm looking at that on my phone. Everyone in our little team's just like, Skojo, what have you done? Man, you're in so much trouble. Yeah, these people want to speak to you at 9 a.m. Make sure you're standing by the phone. Like, you're going to get chewed out. I'm like, oh, okay. I've been chewed out before. It'll be all right. So I'm starting to pack my bags, thinking I'm going back to Baghdad. I'm done. And as I'm walking up the street, I'm getting all the high fives and bum taps from all the Iraqis again, because all the reporting that they're hearing throughout all of their intelligence networks is that last night some random Aussie cunt approved an airstrike on the headquarters of the Islamic State on the eastern side of the river. And all of the Iraqis, imagine every dude on the front line, every Iraqi soldier that's on the front line knows that happened. And what happens when you take out the headquarters? What would you do if you're working in a mine site and someone just shoots your boss in the head? Do you reckon you're going to keep working? No, you can't. If the mine collapses and kills your boss, you go home. You take a couple of days off. And that's exactly what ISIS did. So their headquarters fell. Reporting came through that the strike that we conducted on that facility had killed 14 of their headquarters staff. All the SIGs All the equivalents of Skojo that are sitting there fucking bashing away on a keyboard just wore a fucking Heimar round to the head and died. 14 of the cunts, all dead. It would just look like a fucking bloodbath in this Mosul University compound that, or, you know, Cat 1 facility that we'd struck. And everyone was high-fiving me. And it was then pretty hard for our government to turn around and be like, you fucked up. You made a mistake. You shouldn't have done that. When the Iraqi Prime Minister is calling our chain of command to be like, whoever that cunt was, nosh him off. He deserves 10 Iraqi 18-year-old virgins sent to him at once to nosh him off because he just saved the countless Iraqi lives. So I'm on one hand getting looked at like I'm a fucking piece of shit by our government, and some kind of legalities behind that I might fucking face some fucking prison time or something. But then on the other hand, you've got every Iraqi in the whole country and all around the world trying to nosh me off. So it was one of the biggest moments, and I guess one of the most ballsy things that I've ever done in my career that without a doubt kept me in Mosul for the rest of the deployment. So yeah, fucking hell, it was hectic. So I ended up getting a commendation. So the commander of joint operations, it's here on the wall actually right next to me. Let me just rip this cunt off the wall. And maybe that's why I'll wrap it up because we're getting towards an hour. Let me read out this commendation. So sometimes when I'm having a down day, when we haven't got to the point where I got in a little bit of trouble later in my career, but sometimes it's easy for me to think that I did the wrong thing sometimes in my career because there's a lot of negativity with what we see in the media and what's going on right now in the news, where they're trying to paint all of us as bad people. But I've never seen an Aussie soldier operate where his intentions weren't to kill bad dudes and protect innocent people. So I'm going to wrap it up by reading out this commendation that I got from a dude called D.L. Johnson AO, the Vice Admiral, Royal Australian Navy, Commander-Chief of Joint Operations. And it says, the Intelligence Fusion and Support Cell is commended for superior achievement and dedication to duty within the Special Operations Task Group 632, Rotation 6 of Operation Okra from November 2016 to May 2017. Throughout a demanding deployment, you played an instrumental role in enabling the significant achievements of the task group. You excelled as a team in providing tailored, high-quality intelligence, utilizing the combined resources of the Australian intelligence community, Five Eyes intelligence capabilities, and those organic to the task group. Your proactive attitude directly contributed to the enhanced effectiveness of the Iraqi counterterrorism service in the clearance of Mosul and in support of counterterrorism operations against the Baghdad threat network. You set the benchmark, I set the motherfucking benchmark, for intelligence support to a partner force in contact with the enemy as you tirelessly generated hundreds of special operations target intelligence packs and other highly valued products in Arabic for release to the Iraqis. Your products were invaluable to the Iraqi counterterrorism service in their fight to liberate Mosul and provided a distinct advantage to the Iraqi commanders, saving innumerable lives and accelerating the attack. The combined efforts of the Special Operations Task Group 632 Intelligence Fusion and Support Cell were outstanding. Your achievements and commitment to duty are of the highest order and in keeping with the finest traditions of the motherfucking Australian Defence Force. Suck me off. So anyone that's got a problem, eat a dick, eat a bag of dicks. We saved Mosul, and this is just the start of it. So I feel very honoured to be able to tell you that story about the Mosul University. And that's the commendation that I just ripped off the wall that's in my study in my little war room here. And something that I'm very proud of. So obviously when I started to get this momentum and this traction in what I was doing, it gave me a lot of confidence for what I would eventually do next. It's not about me. It's about the boys, and it's about getting rid of shit cunts and turning ISIS into human waste. So I look forward to the next couple of potty episodes because I'm literally about to hit the hour mark and I better get the fuck out of here. I'm going to go have a Milo. Enjoy, cunts. Have a good one. Hooroo. Toodles. Ta-da.